She filed a restraining order, then I showed the court her travel history. Chapter 1, Served. It was a Tuesday morning when the knock came. Not loud, just sharp enough to wake suspicion. A man in a polo shirt stood at my door. Thin folder in hand. No eye contact. "Are you Miles Carter?" I nodded. He handed me the envelope and turned without a word. No explanation. No signature needed. Inside, a copy of a restraining order. Temporary. Effective immediately. Filed by Harper Lane. I stood in my kitchen staring at the papers, the words blurring and sharpening with every blink. She said I was stalking her. Showing up uninvited. Threatening her. It was fiction. Weaponized fiction. And worse, it was perfectly timed. We hadn't spoken in almost 3 weeks. I ended things after finding messages between her and a man listed in her phone as wellness partner. Turned out, that partner was more than a collaboration. She cried, begged, denied. But I was done. I told her so, calmly. Clean break. No drama. Or so I thought. What I didn't realize then was that Harper had been planning her next move long before I made mine. She'd been building a brand, online therapist turned self-empowerment speaker. Sponsored posts, brand deals, a rising podcast. Her image was curated, spotless. And I was about to become her villain. This wasn't just about bitterness. It was business. The narrative she filed with the court wasn't spontaneous, it was strategic. She needed me to look dangerous. So she could look brave. So her followers would rally. So sponsors would stay. And maybe, just maybe, so she could get ahead of the financial conversations we hadn't started yet. I still had access to the shared business account. Still owned part of the licensing she used to monetize her workshops. Now I was legally blocked from messaging her. Which meant I couldn't ask her one very obvious question. If you're so afraid of me, why did you check into the same hotel as me last weekend? Chapter 2, The Courtroom Setup. The hearing was held in Courtroom 9C, Family Division. The kind of courtroom that had seen more accusations than resolutions, where the walls held the quiet tension of too many broken partnerships. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The smell of stale coffee lingered. I arrived early. Dressed sharp. Pressed suit, clean shave, posture straight. I didn't want to appear defensive, just grounded. In control. Harper arrived late. 15 minutes past the hour, walking in with oversized sunglasses and a tissue already clenched in her hand like a prop. She didn't glance my way. Instead, she clung to her lawyer's arm like a woman on the verge of collapse. The judge called the hearing to order. Harper's lawyer opened with language that sounded like it had been rehearsed in front of a mirror. My client fears for her safety. Ongoing emotional intimidation. A concerning pattern of behavior. Then Harper spoke. Her voice was quiet. Fragile. I've been terrified, she said. He texts late at night. He shows up where I am. He won't leave me alone. The judge nodded solemnly. He didn't ask for tone. He didn't ask for proof. He asked if she felt safe. She said no. That was enough, for now. Her attorney passed forward a few screenshots. A handful of text messages, all from me. None aggressive. Just clipped, pointed. A request to discuss the business account. A final message, I deserve the truth. Taken alone, they looked like frustration. With Harper's framing, they became harassment. She claimed I'd followed her. That I showed up uninvited. That I was hovering around her life like a storm she couldn't escape. She didn't mention the times she came to my apartment. Or the fact that she'd RSVP'd to the same events. Or the night we ran into each other at a hotel we both booked, a coincidence she'd now twisted into a threat. The judge didn't issue a final ruling. Just extended the order until further review. But I knew what I was watching, a woman who'd built her entire brand on controlled vulnerability. now turning that performance into legal power. And in that moment, I realized something chilling. She didn't need to tell the whole truth. She just needed to look like someone worth protecting. Chapter 3, Public Enemy. The restraining order was public record. That meant anyone could find it, and they did. At first, it was subtle. A few unread messages left hanging. Calls that went to voicemail. My coworkers stopped inviting me to after-work drinks. One of them, a guy I'd trained myself, took over a pitch I'd been leading. No one told me why. They didn't have to. My name was now linked with hers in a way that didn't come with nuance. It came with judgment. Harper didn't mention me directly on her platforms, but she didn't have to. Her caption said everything. Healing in the face of fear. What boundaries cost you is nothing compared to what silence would have. You don't owe explanations to the people who hurt you. Her followers flooded the comments with hearts and hashtags. Hashtag survivor energy. Hashtag safe not silent. Hashtag cut the ties. I didn't recognize the woman in those posts. The version of me she implied. People unfollowed me. One former friend texted to say she hoped I got help. Another just deleted me quietly. Even my mother asked me, carefully, if there was anything I needed to talk about. It wasn't just social. It was professional. 2 sponsors from our joint business license emailed to say they were re-evaluating partnerships in light of recent concerns. They never said what concerns. They didn't have to. Harper had framed me without ever naming me. And the more I tried to defend myself, the more it looked like guilt. In 3 weeks, I went from being a partner in her success story to the invisible villain she built her next chapter around. And that's when I knew, if I didn't fight back smart, I wouldn't just lose her, I'd lose everything tied to my name. Chapter 4, The Message That Didn't Fit. It showed up while I was cleaning out a shared folder, a cloud archive we'd both used for marketing drafts back when things were good. We hadn't touched it in weeks, but it was still synced to my account. I wasn't even looking for anything, just clearing out clutter, trying to distract myself. The file was labeled with the date just 5 days before she filed the restraining order. Inside was a screenshot of a text message Harper had sent me at 10:41 p.m. Miss you tonight. That song came on again. You'd still laugh at me if you heard it. No anger. No fear. Just late night nostalgia. The timestamp was important. Because the very next morning, she'd submitted her sworn affidavit claiming she had cut off all communication due to escalating behavior. I stared at the message for a long time. Not because I didn't remember it, I did. I remembered feeling confused when it came through. I hadn't replied. I didn't trust her anymore. But I hadn't deleted it either. Now, it read like a crack in the script. That one text unraveled her timeline. And I hadn't even started digging yet. I printed it. Highlighted the time. Filed it in a new folder titled simply, Contradictions. It became the first pin in a wall I didn't realize I'd soon cover in thread. After that, I stopped cleaning and started searching. I reread old threads. Downloaded old calendars. Reviewed photos. Checked email metadata. Every detail I'd ignored before was now a piece of something bigger. That was the moment the shift began. When I stopped feeling cornered, and started looking for patterns. Because if she lied about when we stopped talking, what else had she lied about? And more importantly, what had she forgotten to delete? Chapter 5, The Apartment Visit. It wasn't until I ran into Marta, the woman who lived across the hall, that the next puzzle piece dropped into place. She was dragging groceries up the stairs when she spotted me. Gave a cautious smile. Hey. Haven't seen your friend around lately. The one who came by last Thursday? I stopped in my tracks. You mean Harper? She nodded. Yeah. She knocked on your door for a while. Left after a few minutes. Thought maybe you were out. Last Thursday. That was the day before the order was filed. I blinked. Are you sure? She was wearing that blue coat, Marta said. The one with the buttons down the side. She was pacing a bit. Looked like she was working up the nerve to knock again. I knew the coat. Harper wore it like armor, casual enough to deflect questions, polished enough to look in control. It was the same one she wore during her first brand shoot. Marta didn't linger. She shrugged, offered a sympathetic look, and disappeared behind her door. I stood in the hallway, pulse rising. Harper's affidavit claimed she hadn't come near me in over a month. That she was afraid for her safety. That she went out of her way to avoid me. Yet she came to my apartment. I pulled up the building's entry log. She hadn't used her full name. Just initials. But the handwriting was hers, deliberate loops in the H, a distinctive slash through the L. I checked the timestamp. 7:46 p.m. one day before the restraining order was filed. Then I accessed the lobby camera feed. There she was. In full color. Standing at my door for almost 7 minutes. Glancing down the hall. Checking her phone. Calm. Composed. Not frantic. Not fearful. Just waiting. I downloaded the footage, saved the log, and added a transcript of my conversation with Marta. This wasn't a misunderstanding. Harper had fabricated a version of reality that relied on no one else paying attention. But Marta paid attention. And so did the camera. And so, finally, did I. She hadn't just misrepresented the timeline. She'd used it as a weapon. And now, I had the blade. Chapter 6, Legal Advice. I brought everything to the only person I trusted more than my own instincts, Angela Rios, a family and civil litigation attorney I knew through a former client. She wasn't cheap, and she wasn't gentle. But I didn't need gentle. I needed fireproof. Angela flipped through the screenshots, entry logs, and time-stamped videos in silence. When she finally looked up, her expression was unreadable. She's not sloppy, she said. But she is arrogant. And that's better. I raised an eyebrow. Better how? She believes she's controlling the story. Which means she hasn't bothered to clean up her trail. You said she has a podcast? Instagram? Email marketing? Then she's got digital fingerprints everywhere? Let's collect. She handed me a checklist. A real one. Not a metaphor. Every calendar invite. Every metadata tag on photos. Every location stamped video, archived post, digital flyer. Find the inconsistencies. We build a timeline. Not emotional, factual. You're not defending yourself. You're proving she lied. I spent the next 3 days doing exactly that. Angela guided me like a forensic analyst, not a lawyer. She showed me how to pull metadata from exported social posts. How to match it to time zones. How to flag deleted content. That's when the pattern became undeniable. Harper hadn't been hiding from me. She'd been building her brand, while posting from the same city she claimed to have fled. Selling vulnerability while flying first class. Preaching safety while booking rooms 3 floors above mine. Angela looked over the assembled files on day 4 and nodded once. She filed this to protect her narrative. Let's end it with the truth. Chapter 7, A Pattern Emerges. Angela's checklist had become my obsession. I stopped sleeping properly. Started keeping my laptop open on the kitchen counter, tabs lined like soldiers. One for her podcast uploads. One for her social feed. One for the metadata scrubber Angela taught me to use. Each time I thought I hit a wall, something cracked open. Harper claims she left the city for her safety on March 2nd. I found an Instagram story she posted on March 4th, a matcha latte beside a window view unmistakably from a downtown cafe. I recognized the brickwork outside. I'd taken her there myself. She geotagged it as Self-Care Sunday. That same day, she had submitted an emergency request for a permanent restraining order, citing mental and emotional distress triggered by proximity. Next, I found a video clip. A behind-the-scenes reel from one of her workshops, the same workshop she claimed in court she'd cancelled due to feeling unsafe knowing he might show up. But she didn't cancel. She hosted. And in the video, she laughed with her team, tossing post-it notes into the air. The date? 2 days after the order was issued. Angela watched the clips without a word. Then she leaned in and asked, "Do you know what a credibility collapse looks like in court?" I nodded slowly. "It looks like this?" She smiled. "It looks exactly like this." I started building a timeline, not just of lies, but of overlapping lies. Her legal claims didn't sync with her online life. Her sponsors hadn't dropped her, she'd dropped me to secure better contracts. She'd even used part of our shared funds to boost those same posts. Angela called it a narrative house of cards. And now, one by one, we were pulling the cards out. Chapter 8, Her Travel History. It started with a receipt. A forwarded confirmation from a travel booking app tied to our old shared email, the one Harper claimed she'd stopped using. I'd almost forgotten it still existed. But apparently, she hadn't. The subject line was simple: "Your trip to Palm Springs is confirmed." Dated 2 days before the court hearing. Booked under her full name. Paid with a joint account she had legally claimed to have no access to. I opened the itinerary. Checked the dates. The hotel stay overlapped with the time she claimed to be in hiding with family out of state. According to her sworn statement, she was in New York. But the flight confirmation said LAX to PSP. The timestamp on her hotel's Wi-Fi login matched. I dug deeper. Over the next 48 hours, I cross-referenced flight logs, hotel check-ins, Airbnb stays, all tied to that email or our shared financial accounts. And what I found was undeniable: Harper had been moving freely. Not hiding. Not afraid. She'd been strategically visible where it benefited her, and strategically invisible where it didn't. She filmed a podcast interview in a co-working space 3 blocks from my gym, 2 days after telling the court she couldn't go near downtown without panic. She gave a keynote speech in Chicago the same week she claimed to be in therapy recovery mode. Every location tracked. Every date stamped. Every lie exposed. I handed Angela the printed travel log. 22 entries, color-coded and organized. She didn't say anything right away. Just gave a long exhale and whispered, she buried herself. This wasn't about her fear anymore. It wasn't even about me. It was about control. And she was about to lose it. Chapter 9, Her Other Phone. It showed up in the least expected way, an old device buried in a box of shared tech. I'd gone looking for a charger. What I found was a beat-up iPhone with a cracked case and a dead battery. I recognized it immediately. Harper's old backup phone, the one she used when traveling. She claimed it had stopped working months ago. But when I plugged it in, it powered on. No passcode. What I found wasn't just proof, it was strategy. This phone had become her second brain. Here were Venmo transactions for consulting that never hit our business books. DMs with brand managers she hadn't disclosed. Drafts of video scripts and talking points for interviews, many of which contradicted her legal claims. There were notes titled like episode outlines. Why I stayed too long, but finally chose me. The cost of silence, and what I'll never say in court. They weren't reflections. They were scripts. Then came the folder named Prep. Inside were 3 video files. One of her rehearsing a tearful monologue, adjusting her tone between takes. Another showed a recorded Zoom with a friend, asking, "Does this sound authentic enough? I want it to land." The last one made my stomach drop. She stared directly into the camera. If he brings up the hotel, I'll say it was coincidence. If he has timestamps, I'll say he manipulated them. If he shows messages, I'll say I sent them under duress. The goal isn't to win. It's to bury him in doubt. I copied everything to 3 drives. Angela. Me. One in a bank lockbox. This wasn't just evidence. It was a confession, recorded in her own voice. The phone she meant to keep hidden had just burned her entire narrative to the ground. Chapter 10, The Court Reversal. Angela didn't just file a motion to lift the restraining order, she prepared a full dismantling of Harper's case. We walked into the courthouse that Thursday morning with a binder thick enough to tile a floor. She called it the counter-narrative. And when the judge took the bench, Angela's posture shifted. No longer just a defense attorney, she was a strategist in motion. Harper sat across the room in soft tones and dramatic mascara. Her attorney adjusted his cuffs. He still looked confident. Angela stood. Your Honor, we are prepared to demonstrate that the initial restraining order was obtained through strategic misrepresentation, inconsistent sworn statements, and selective omission of digital records. We're asking for full dismissal and the court's review of our exhibits. The judge narrowed his eyes. Proceed. Angela passed the binder forward. Exhibit A through Exhibit O, in chronological order. The judge flipped the pages. A time-stamped calendar invite showing Harper checked into the same hotel as me. A screenshot of her texting me the night before the filing. A digital marketing flyer dated 2 days after she claimed to cancel her event. A flight log showing she traveled to Palm Springs when she said she was hiding in New York. Angela didn't stop there. She queued up a short video. Harper's voice came through the speakers. Does this sound authentic enough? It was her on a Zoom call, rehearsing lines. The judge's eyebrows lifted. What am I watching? Angela answered, Your Honor, this is from a secondary phone Harper failed to disclose. We have metadata tracing it to the week she submitted her affidavit. She's rehearsing for court. A silence fell over the courtroom. Angela paused. Then added, and that's not the worst of it. We have one more video, which we're holding unless Your Honor requests it. In it, Ms. Lane states, quote, if he brings up the hotel, I'll say it was coincidence. If he has timestamps, I'll say he manipulated them. If he shows messages, I'll say I sent them under duress. The goal isn't to win. It's to bury him in doubt. A rustle of movement behind us. Harper's lawyer turned pale. Harper herself froze, her composure unraveling second by second. She glanced at her attorney, her throat working in silence. The judge leaned back. I'm going to need a recess, he said. Then I want to see that final video. All of it. Angela gave me a look that said it all. This wasn't a reversal. It was the start of collapse. Chapter 11, Public Fallout. The final video played the next morning. The courtroom was quieter. Tighter. Even the security guards looked more alert. Harper didn't speak. She didn't blink. She just stared at the screen as her own words filled the room. If he brings up the hotel, I'll say it was coincidence. The goal isn't to win. It's to bury him in doubt. There was no gasping. Just silence. Then the judge said, flatly, well, that certainly reframes everything. He didn't even look at Harper as he dismissed the restraining order. He just stamped the paperwork and said, consider this court misled. Further sanctions will be reviewed. Angela didn't smile. She nodded once and packed the binder away. Outside the courtroom, everything moved fast. The story hit social media within hours. Not from us, but from someone in the gallery. A legal blogger, maybe? They described the reversal. The videos. The phrase she rehearsed it like a script. Hashtags followed. People who had once praised Harper's message started asking questions. I watched her followers shrink in real time. One brand dropped her. Then another. Podcast hosts quietly deleted past interviews. An influencer once featured in her post tweeted, we need to talk about performative victimhood. Angela warned me, they'll turn on her fast. And it'll get ugly. She was right. By the weekend, Harper posted a carefully worded apology, a screenshot of a paragraph typed in her phone's notes app and uploaded to Instagram. It was vague. Defensive. Claimed nuance and complicated emotions. But the damage was done. Because you can lie in a courtroom and hope to recover. But when the internet watches you do it in 4K, over 3 angles and 2 microphones? There's no coming back. Chapter 12, What I Did Next. I didn't gloat. I didn't post. I didn't respond to the dozens of people who messaged me saying, "You were right," or "I always thought something was off about her." Instead, I drove out to the coast. Angela had handed me back the original USB drive, the one holding all 3 videos, like she was returning a loaded weapon. "This is yours," she said. "But I'd recommend locking it away." So I did. I found a bank halfway between the city and my hometown. Rented a private box. Filed the drive under nothing but my initials and a timestamp. I didn't want revenge anymore. I wanted peace. I took time off from the company. Let my partners handle the day-to-day. Booked a week at a small cabin north of Mendocino with no signal and no headlines. I hiked. Cooked over fire. Read old books. Watched the sky. And for the first time in over a year, I wasn't wondering when the next shoe would drop. It already had. But I wasn't done healing, not really. I started therapy. Real therapy. Not the stuff you do once a month to check a box. This was twice a week, fully present, no filter. I wanted to know why I missed the signs. Why I let myself be twisted by someone else's version of me. Turns out, when someone erodes your reality slowly enough, you stop trusting even your gut. I reconnected with my sister. We hadn't spoken much since the restraining order. She had distanced herself to avoid the drama. I understood. But when she called and said, "I watched the footage. I'm sorry I doubted you," something cracked open inside me. Not grief. Relief? I started writing again. Just for me. Pages that had nothing to do with her, or what happened. Stories, sketches, bits of memory that reminded me I was more than what she tried to make me. I also took a long look at who I allowed into my world. Some people reached out just to gossip. Others, to reattach themselves now that the tide had turned. I let most of them drift back out to sea. Peace isn't just the absence of chaos. It's presence. Intention. Rebuilding. Harper's collapse didn't erase the damage she caused. But it cleared my name. Gave me back my breath. And I wasn't going to waste it rehashing her lies. I didn't need her downfall to feel like I won. I just needed her fiction to stop passing for truth. And now that it had, I could finally start living my own story again. On my terms. Chapter 13, Her Last Move. It started with a message request. Blocked account. No name. Just a string of numbers and a lowercase "hi." I deleted it. Then came the burner email. Subject line, "You're not who they think you are." It sat in my inbox for 3 days before I opened it. The sender? An anonymous Gmail. The body? One line. We both lied. Mine just wasn't caught on camera. Harper. I forwarded it to Angela immediately. "Don't respond," she said. "Not even to say you got it. This isn't about reconciliation. It's bait. She's building a new narrative, probably for the people who stuck around." Sure enough, 2 days later, Harper's new blog appeared. Substack. Password protected, but not for long. Someone leaked the screenshots. She wasn't trying to claw her way back into the public's good graces. She was trying to fracture the truth. The posts were dripping with vague innuendo. Things like, "There are always 2 sides. Being silenced is the hardest part. The justice system protects those who can pay to rewrite history." She never named me. But the implication was clear. And to a small circle of loyal followers, the ones who still clung to her original brand, it was enough. Angela shook her head when I sent her the link. "She's not trying to win anymore," she said. "She's just trying to stay relevant. Let her burn out." I wanted to. I really did. But it was hard not to feel her shadow lurking, even if it no longer had weight. What finally made me let go, truly, was realizing something simple: you can't force someone to tell the truth. But you can make sure their lie doesn't define you. And that was the last thing she would ever take from me. Chapter 14, My Final Word. This story wasn't meant to be told. Not because I'm ashamed, but because for a long time, I thought staying silent was the dignified choice. Let her have her version. Let the public decide. But silence doesn't protect you. It preserves the lie. And the lie she told nearly cost me everything. My work. My name. My sanity. What I learned is that truth doesn't just defend itself. Sometimes it needs an advocate. Sometimes it needs evidence. Sometimes it needs a voice that shakes when it speaks, but speaks anyway. I'm not the man she painted in her affidavit. I never was. And now, because of that one backup phone, because of a good attorney, and because I didn't stop digging, the record's been corrected. There are still days I replay it all. Not to relive it, but to remind myself what I survived. There's a kind of strength that comes from being dismantled and rebuilding anyway. And if anyone out there is watching this, someone quietly living inside a lie that isn't yours, I hope you hear this. You are not what they say about you. You are not the version they crafted to excuse their own betrayal. You are your own proof. And no matter how convincing the performance, the truth, eventually, gets its voice back. This was mine.
Thanks so much for watching. If you love a good revenge story, or if you've ever dreamed of getting the last word without saying much at all, you're in the right place. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you never miss a new savage ending. Because around here, karma always hits different.